That one got it though. You should cull. What's up everyone, Brandon Palaniuk here, and I'm gonna give you guys a rundown on how I select my crankbait colors throughout the different seasons when I'm trying to match the forage, and also give you a little rundown on the setup that I like to use. So that's what I'm gonna start with, is my setup, because I feel like that's super important when you're talking about crankbait fishing. Why is that important? Well, the bait is always moving away from the fish, right? We're constantly casting, reeling, pausing, reeling, and as this bait moves through the water column, it's moving away from the fish, or it's deflecting off the cover, moving away from those fish. And so with that, plus the fact that it's treble hooks and fish tend to have a better chance at throwing those baits, you want a rod that's very forgiving. So you can see this is an Alpha Angler Mag Rebound, and it has a very parabolic bend. That's because it's made out of 100% glass. And what that allows it to do is keep that medium heavy action where I'm able to launch these bigger crankbaits, but it also keeps that parabolic bend, that nice even bend. And what that allows it to do is when you're reeling and that fish eats it, it allows it to absorb that shock. But then the other thing that it allows it to do is when those fish go to jump, they're not able to throw the bait as easily, because when the rod is bent, there's pressure on the line. As soon as it goes straight, everything past that jump is slacking your line, and that's when you're gonna lose those fish. So parabolic bend is very important. The reel is a Daiwa Stize 6.3 to 1. If you don't know what that means that this spool turns 6.3 times for every one time I turn this handle. That's how you determine your gear ratio. Now, why that's important, or why I select that, is I like to be able to burn this, especially in the summertime. I like to be able to get the speed out of this bait, or if I deflect off the cover, I like to be able to get that bait back down there extremely quick. So that's why I choose the faster gear ratio. A lot of times you hear guys talking about the 5-to-1s and those slower gear ratios. I prefer the faster one, and I'm always able to slow down if I have to. Now, let's talk about line. Bigger crankbaits, bigger rods, a lot of times you'd think heavier line, but you want that bait to be able to get down there into the strike zone quickly, so lighter line is the key, and fluorocarbon is gonna help that get down there. It's gonna sink and help that bait, and it's gonna be extremely thin, so that's what I look for when I'm selecting lines. Lines like a Seaguar Tatsu or an Invis-X. A lot of times if I'm in open water, I like to fish Tatsu. It's extremely thin, and I'll throw a 10 or a 12-pound test. And if I get into heavier cover, I'll throw Invis-X, and I'll go with a 12-pound Invis-X with a little bit more abrasion resistance. That's our setup. Now, how do we select colors? As you can see here, this is a new color from Rapala called Citrus Shad, and that's going to be in those summertime months when those fish are schooled up, and I'm really trying to get a reaction bite. You got a little bit of stain in the water, but it's started to clear up, and I want those fish to react. That's when I choose those. And I'm just gonna go right down the lineup. These are all DT16s, DT20s. This is another new color. This one is the one that I'm probably the most excited about. It's called Big Shad. And it's a really unique color in the fact that it's a darker hue. And that's one thing I pay attention to a lot of times, is the hue of the crankbait. And this one's darker, but what it allows it to do is match a lot of that bait in the summertime. It gets up high in the water column, cleaner water, and it darkens up, and it matches those bait fish in the summer. If the water's real clear, or those fish get very pressured, then I'll go to something like a green gizzard shad, something that is much lighter, much more natural. It doesn't have those brighter colors, and that's going to allow those fish to react to that bait better. It's not going to, for lack of better words, scare the fish when that crankbait comes blowing through there. But another thing that happens a lot of times is you end up with bluegill in the summertime, brim beds. Later in the year, they start to spawn a little bit deeper. I'll actually throw a bluegill pattern crankbait, and you don't hear about that a lot. You hear guys talking all the shad hues and stuff. So bluegill option is a great option for them. And then don't forget, in the spring, early pre-spawn, I catch a ton of big fish on deep diving crankbaits in those craw patterns, right? They're eating those crawfish that are first coming out, they're lethargic. but those fish haven't moved up yet. The water column or the water temperatures haven't risen and those fish haven't made their push shallow. Reach for that crawdad crankbait early in the year. So hope that helps you guys catch more fish throughout the season on different crankbaits.